But objectively, he is the most successful politician in British history representing that view, until Nigel Farage, who I believe is by these guys to zip it. And so he is that we need in the conversation, because he was representing millions of people, believe that what they believe is immoral, but they still get a vote, and so it is still a voice.
With regards to Tommy Robinson and his Zionist connection, tell me more about that. Like, what was the impetus and what made that link apparent to you? Because it's not apparent to a lot of people.
It's a great question, that, because it keeps happening with the Tommy Robinson movement. It's not one static thing where they keep the same fans forever. People bail out of the Tommy Robinson movement in pretty regular stages because they realise something isn't right. And for me, it was in 2019. Tommy Robinson was supposed to be releasing a documentary series called The Rape of Britain, which is about young girls being raped up and down the country. And then at this rally, which I wasn't at, I just heard about it, there was an advert on the screen for his upcoming documentary, and it was called Shalom. And it was about a Jewish man in France who was bullied so much by Muslims that he eventually died. They didn't kill him. I don't know if he committed suicide or something, but this incensed a lot of us because we were questioning, what relevance does that have? These people that are supporting Tommy Robinson because he is standing up for these poor children, and then we get given something about anti-Semitism in France. People have donated their money for his projects. And then they started noticing, hang on, Ezra Levant, Avi Yemeni, these are not British men. These are not men with any connection to Britain whatsoever. These are Jews. And eventually, and also a couple of people got kicked out of the Tommy Robinson movement for starting to ask questions about Jews, basically. Starting to post things on Twitter about anything.
Who were these?
There was one woman called Shazia Hobbs. She was a writer for Tommy Robinson's website, and then she basically wrote an article about Jewish double standards, i.e., if we can say it about Muslims, can we also apply the same logic to Jews? And immediately she was removed from the team, and they even released a video as a hit piece against her, calling her a Nazi. And this was so over the top. It's like, hang on, what is this? These are just people asking questions. We're not overtly on the tin like a massively pro-Jewish movement, but apparently we are. And so what I've been doing, or what I did this year, I don't think I'll repeat it, I went down to 2 Tommy Robinson rallies to see what would happen. The first one, I got arrested in under 4 minutes for my own safety. The police escorted me out of there in case they did anything to me. And then at the second one, they did actually assault me. Like you said, what do you say to the people that say lefty?
Yeah.
That is what they said. Now bear in mind, I've just told you I've interviewed Nick Griffin and Jada Franson, far-right people. Tommy Robinson's stewards, because they recognised me, started screaming, "Get out of here, you lefty," which triggered his drunk fans to start kicking me. Now, they wouldn't have done that if they hadn't been yelling the word lefty, and I'm not a lefty. So I'm really concerned about what these people feel like they can do and get away with. They feel like they can just yell words and get people to attack me, and the police haven't run me back about it yet. So, yeah.
So with regards to Israel, like a lot of people are talking about the migrant issue here in the UK, coloured people coming and taking over British culture. I would argue that Israel and their interference in the UK is more insidious, is more dangerous and more deep-rooted than pretty much any other country.
Yep.
And I'll just give a few facts just for the basis of the audience. There's a company called Oracle. Yeah, Oracle are used by the Home Office, the Ministry of Defense, and the NHS. They look after the data of these 3 very important institutions. And there is somebody called Larry Ellison who owns Oracle. And Larry Ellison is very close buddies with Benjamin Netanyahu, to such a degree that he actually offered directorship of Oracle to Benjamin Netanyahu. And he's Larry Ellison he's a very big funder of the Friends of the IDF also. Very big funder. Celebrite. Don't know if you've heard of Celebrite. The police use it to hack phones. Yeah, and Celebrite, it's owned by Israeli intelligence. More specifically, forerunners called the Unit 8200. Yeah. So, and in fact, the owner of Celebrite was boasting as well and saying we have remote control access to this data.
Yeah.
So bear in mind, this is data that the police has got from civilians. Then you've got NICE systems as well. NICE systems is owned, well, it looks after data from the Foreign Office, and the police also uses in their investigations. And the owner of NICE systems, in fact, the people that own NICE systems, they own Israel's biggest arms company, Elbit Systems also. And last but not least,
It goes on.
yeah, this is actually got from Low Key.
Loki's so good.
And that's what you probably could tell because he's very good at kind of following the trail.
Details. Yeah, exactly. I always defer to him. If people say, how can you prove it? I just go watch a Loki video.
Yeah, if you look at BT is British Telecom. I mean, as British as it gets. And the owner is somebody called Patrick Drahi. And Patrick Drahi is somebody that owns I-24, which is the Israeli news channel that perpetrated that lie, or that was the starting of the lie of the 40 beheaded babies. It was Patrick Drahi.
Wow, yeah.
And I-24 has been used, it's a company set up by Haaretz as something close to Netanyahu and Netanyahu's family. And of course, he supports organizations that are building on settlements as well. So this is just in case somebody's watching and thinking, oh, a Muslim and a lefty talking about stuff that they don't understand. So this is a bit of information that they can check up as well, with regards to the origins and the tentacles. I don't want to be anti-Semitic.
I don't go mentioning octopuses.
Or let's just say the web.
Yeah.
The web of influence that Israel has, not the Jews, that Israel has in British society.
I mean, we will probably differ on this. I have no issue with using the phrase the Jews, and I actually think it's essential that we do, because I do not mean all Jews when I say the Jews. And I'm demonstrating at Speaker's Corner how much people react when you use those two words together. Dave Chappelle had a great routine about it, saying anyone who ever used these two words together has got in severe trouble. But they shouldn't, because you don't, when you talk about the British, the Chinese, no, it's never implied that you're talking about every British peasant if you're talking about what the British Empire did. So that is why I try and use the word Jews instead of Zionist and Israeli, because a lot of people make excuses, and I honestly think that's how they get away with it. I have so many people saying, not everyone in the IDF is Jewish, how dare you? And I'm like, well, I think most of them are. I think the vast majority of them are. Oh, Israel and Jews aren't the same thing. Okay, but Israel is definitely full of Jews, isn't it? Definitely got a lot of Jews in it.
There was somebody called Shulamit Aloni.
Yeah.
Shulamit Aloni used to be in the cabinet, is the Israeli cabinet, and she won the Israel 2000 prize as well.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's a very prestigious prize in Israel. She said, anti-Semitism? What anti-Semitism? It's a trick.
It's a trick. I remember this quote.
Yeah, it's a trick
We always use
to
it.
divert any criticism, legitimate criticism towards Zionist Israel.
Yes, I mean it is, and I think at Speaker's Corner we really want to show it off,
You know what?
it's
I think
extreme.
a lot of people are walking past.
Yeah, what is this even for? I wanted to say one more thing.
Where's Abdul Karim? He's gone. Because we could have maybe gone to a quieter spot.
It was just,
Because I think it's really annoying.
Yeah, you're right.
if it's still picking it up, the one last thing I wanted to say was about you were describing the tentacles, if we can use that. And I really want to get this point across to people. I think that Muslims are the scapegoats of this. And so the white guys are told there's loads of Muslims here and they want to impose Sharia law. And they are told Sharia law is coming down the line. And not only that, you should fear it. It's scary and they'll behead you and whatever. And this problem that's coming down the line, I think distracts from the fact that we are already occupied. I think it works completely cover, and no one really looks at it because they're looking over there at this perceived problem that is in the future, not the problem that we actually very, very clearly have. But they're very clever in terms of, like, I think the thing with Islam is that it's so obvious. You guys have beards and wear hijabs and you have mosques and you pray, and so we can see it.
No, it's all right for now.
You can't see Zionism. You like a Tommy Robinson supporter. There are no clues that there's anything untoward going on here because it's so well hidden. It took me years to actually discover. Wait, what is Zionism? How does Tommy Robinson relate to Zionism?
Have you seen the clip in which he goes, if there was ever a war, I would be on the side of Israel, because why not?
And that is now evidenced by what's been going on the last 10 months. He's been pushing out propaganda for Israel, so he is very literally fighting the war for Israel. He may not be there with a gun, but he's quite a key part of it because he's probably the main guy in Britain trying to drum up support for this nonsense, at least among a certain demographic. And yeah, it's criminal. And not only that, he's scammed so many people. He commits crimes every time he does anything. He broke his bail conditions to broadcast that film a couple of months ago. And I think it's quite sad about the British people who support him because they've just got such low standards. They don't like people like me coming along and saying, can you not do better? Can you not? And I really discussed this a lot last week, is that they point at the Muslims as bad people when the Muslims are quite obviously living a more faith-filled life. So is there actually a bit of insecurity going on here? Because there's no part of me that wants to fix any of these problems by going and looting Sainsbury's. Right?
Greggs.
And by going and stealing a load of steak bakes. That's not a very valid way to express your condolences.
Finding a Citizens Advice Bureau that ironically helps the people in the area.
Yeah, and it shows that these guys have no direction because they're not doing something productive. What did I do the day after the race riots? I came down here, stood on my box, and had a conversation with the public to see what we're going to do. What we're going to do. Because I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm expected to fight you. I think that's very unreasonable. I think this is a better path through. And so that's what I'm doing. But I believe I'm only doing that because I'm coming to it from a place of faith. And I have a theological framework around this conflict or genocide. Whereas I think these boys are white. And they see themselves as white, and white doesn't have a faith attached to it. You're just a white boy, and that's not anchored to any meaning or moral code. And that means you can justify smashing up a Sainsbury's because you're fed up of Muslims, even though that makes no sense. That's not a legitimate political action. Yeah, I think it's because they've identified as white instead of Christian. They've got no sense of morality. And Tommy Robinson will never tell them off. He'll never step in after they've done something awful like that and say, boys, you took that too far. I'm ashamed of you. He'll never do that.
Out of interest, with regards to when you were in that group, the right wing, would you say far right wing?
I would actually, a few years ago, these were known as the civic nationalists because Nick Griffin and Jada Franson and that kind of wing, we are people, I count myself as one of them, genuinely, people that do not see the problem as Islam and Muslims, but the problem is a massively declining birth rate and a massive influx of immigration, meaning that eventually the English become a minority in England. I think that is a genuine concern. And
brother, dawah.
Like, I think that's I think it's a little bit heartless when people try and argue that I don't get to be concerned or scared about that, because I don't think you'd impose that on any other country. If any other country, gradually the native population were just shrinking in number and the immigrants were growing. I don't know, it is a concern. So
We just fixed this, yeah?
Yeah, sure, man.
I don't think it's picking you up properly.
So the deal is that characters like Tommy Robinson, Douglas Murray, even down to Julia Hartley-Brewer, the entire roster of Talk TV and TV News, I'm talking every producer on that channel, is basically pushing this narrative that I disagree with, which is it's Muslims, rather than it's an overall demographic crisis caused by two things. Loads of immigrants being brought in primarily because of capitalism, and no children being born by the native population. That's what's actually going on. It's Muslims and they want to impose Sharia. No, I don't think that's going on. I think Muslims are here and they're having babies because they are commanded to by God, while the native population aren't, and therefore there's more Muslims.
And there's another reason as well, is because we're not buying into this whole LGBT phenomena. We're sticking with traditional values as much as possible. Obviously, we're under attack as well. But whilst you have the Church of England now, I think they're trying to drop the word church, LGBT. They're becoming, they're whitewashing that to make it more acceptable. And if the mother is the father and the father is the son and the son is the daughter, how are you expected to have a family when you've got the father trying to have a relation with a pogo stick?
Well, the church takes its cues, the Church of England especially, takes its cues from culture on how to think morally, right? And that is arse backwards, to phrase it that way, is that essentially you've got the clergy worried about being seen as backwards. They need to move with the times, so they read columns in The Guardian about LGBT acceptance and think, oh, we've got to catch up to this, which is crazy, because they're having their moral code dictated to them by atheist liberals. So they want to play catch up with the atheist liberals. So this is why I end up in Speaker's Corner every 2 weeks having a wonderful conversation with Muslims. And yeah, we've got my Catholic friends, but I'm kind of despairing because I was friends with 3 ministers throughout the COVID lockdowns because I thought they were immoral, so did these reverends, and we pondered over that. Because I don't think Jesus would have required a vaccine passport for you to go visit him. It sort of flew in the face of the parable of the leper, etc. And the same applies to Islam. I don't think you should have required a vaccine passport to do the Hajj pilgrimage. It was the pandemic interfered with people's faiths. And so when I met 3 reverends who could see it that way, I was really excited. And then Gaza happened. And their podcast the next week was about wokeness. And then there was another one about wokeness or climate change. And they never, ever spoke up for Gaza. And as a Christian or somebody that does believe in Jesus Christ, I'm having a bit of a crisis of knowing how to interpret this, because I look at the Muslims. I went along to the Free Palestine rally in my hometown, because we've got one of these towns that, according to Tommy Robinson's narrative, should be at each other's throats. We've got a significant Muslim population and a big white population. Everyone agrees on Gaza. It's actually, I'm really lucky. In my town, on the side of the church, there's lovely, they write messages in chalk, like the kids can go and scroll stuff. And it's all Palestine, and it has been since October 7th. So we have this rather cohesive society in my town where I think people, their kids go to school together, they have conversations, and people aren't scared of one another.
Move, yeah? Yeah, let's move. I think we're in the thick of it, yeah.
What I think I'm
Yeah, let's go. tell me, bro. Over there's better, yeah? Yeah? Yeah, that's fine. Comfortable. It's a good time because when we start conversations, then
Don't forget my mic. Yes, you can do this. You're gonna stand in straight.
yeah, just say. Yes, so bro, you say. I think typically it was this sort of scapegoating of Muslims and making them the other. I wanted to add one point just in case like what Muslims do believe in the Sharia, but the thing is Sharia has become a buzzword